Man cuts open seal's stomach, sticking a frostbitten foot inside the seal. Then the seal's fat is boiled in a metal box. Used it on the feet to treat frostbite. The man's name is Kevins. Now all he wants to do is go home. But home is a long way away. It's over 14,000 miles. This is a true story. Some of the German soldiers captured in the Soviet Union during World War II. They were sentenced to 25 years of hard labor. They were sent more than 10,000 kilometers away to mine lead. The prison here is different from the old ones. There are no fences or bars, because they don't need them. No one can escape from here, because there's no means of transport. There's just a vast expanse of snow and ice. Escaping from here would have been suicide. 5 Germans die here every minute. They work day and night. They've worn down their desire to escape. But Kevins kept his faith. For the sake of his wife and children back home, he had to get out of this prison. At night, he snuck out while the guards were changing islands, jumping onto a coal truck, only to be discovered halfway. The officer locked him in the dungeon. The cold, icy rain rained down on his face. Overnight, Kevins miraculously survived. The officer didn't scold him. He just said, "There's no way you're going to get out of my hands, or you will be buried here." When Kevins returned to his cell, he saw his former comrades with their weapons. He realized that because of his escape, the officer had cut everyone's body off for days. He was badly beaten and wounded. Asked the doctor to send a letter to his wife, but the doctor refused. The doctor told him that letters could not be sent here. He had never wanted to escape from here, to return to his family. The doctor also told him that because of the lead, everyone here, it's only a matter of time before they get cancer. At night the doctor thought about it and decided to help Kevins break out of prison, because the doctor had found out last week that he had cancer. He asked Kevins, when he got out, to help him visit his family. Kevins agreed. He took out all the supplies he had, 2 coats and a box of dry rations, and a pistol and 12 rounds of ammunition, and so Kevins set off home with the doctor's obsession. He was on his way home, but what he didn't know was that the road would be over 14,000 kilometers long. The next day the officer found that Kevins had escaped. He found the doctor, only to discover that he had killed himself. 5 days had passed. The search party searched 50 kilometers around. There was no sign of Kevins. Everyone thought he was dead, but the chief didn't think so. He had to go and question the other prisoners, but even if they were dead, they wouldn't betray their comrades. Half a month had passed and Kevins had no idea how far he had come. In a sea of snow, as long as he's alive, he would never stop going home. The last of his rations have been eaten, and there were still more than 13,000 kilometers to go. He is on his knees, praying to God for a little food, but there is no food in this no man's land. All there was a blanket of snow. Eventually Kevins passed out from exhaustion. When he woke up again, there was a seal in front of him. Excited, he pulls out his pistol and shoots at the seal. Kevins ran in excitement, but he accidentally stepped into a river of ice. He got frostbite on his foot, although the problem of food is now solved. But in the middle of the endless snowfield, Kevins is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. All he could do was talk to himself to keep himself sane. One day Kevins stopped walking. He saw a tree in front of him. And was so excited that he ran up to it and hugged it. The tree in front of him. Kevins knew he was on his way out of the snowy landscape. He had barely made it out of the snowfield when he was caught in a blizzard in the forest. He was knocked unconscious by a huge tree, but 2 gold miners rescued him, and so the 3 of them walked together. By this time, Kevins, it's been 6 months since he fled. He was now only 10,000 kilometers from home. One day, as the 3 were making their way on a raft, one of the fat men accidentally fell into the water. Without a moment's hesitation, Kevins jumped in. He saved the fat man from drowning. The other man abandoned them, arriving alone at his destination, ready to take the gold for himself. Just then Kevins and the fat man arrived. Faced with the betrayal of his companions, the fat man had no reason to. He shot him dead. After this incident, Fatty no longer trusted anyone. When Kevins wasn't looking, he attacked Kevins and knocked him out. When he woke up again, he found himself in a tent. It turned out that the Yakutsk men had saved him. They healed Kevins' wounds. They were kind enough to take him in, but it didn't last long. A wanted notice from the governor had been sent here. Now he had to leave immediately. Before he left, the villagers had given him a large bag of supplies and a sled dog to accompany him. A few months later, Kevins had emerged from the snow to a ranch. The people here told him, tomorrow a train will leave from here. It's heading for Germany. It's not a direct route, but it will help Kevins cut a big chunk out of the journey. And so Kevins caught the train, with a long-awaited smile on his face. But once again, fate had played a joke on him. The ranchers had found out that Kevins was begging for food, so he told the officer about his journey. The train arrived in the evening, and Kevins poked his head out. He found a search party outside. At the critical moment the dog jumped on him, and he bit the officer hard, helping Kevins to escape. He escaped and made his way to Central Asia, but his trail was followed by a Jew. The Jew approached him, and told him in no uncertain terms, that he knew that Kevins was a German husband, but he did not intend to report Kevins, but took him to his home, had him take a bath, and changed into clean clothes. The Jew told him to wait for him at home. He went out on a little errand, but when he returned, he found that Kevins was no longer there. He eventually found Kevins in a church. He told the Jew he hadn't meant to. It was just that he had met so many different people along the way. He was too afraid to trust anyone. Luckily, The Jew didn't blame him. He brought out the pass and passport he had been given, and although Kivins felt very guilty, but he accepted his offer. The next day he arrived at the Soviet border. The next day he went to the Soviet border and presented his pass. The officer looked at the documents in front of him with some suspicion, but he was allowed to go. Opening the metal gate, Kivins could hardly contain his joy. If he crossed the bridge in front of him, he would soon be home. But halfway across the bridge, the officer appeared in front of him. Kivins clenched his fist in his hand. He couldn't bear the thought that he had worked so hard. He just wanted to get back to his family. But then the officer turned and made way for him. Kivins couldn't believe it. He bravely went through anyway. That's when the officer said, "Victory will be mine after all." It turned out that the officer had made him his opponent. Although Kivins was his fugitive, but he was also a soldier he admired. It was the winter of 1952. He finally returned home after many years. He saw his daughter and wife, whom he had longed for. Some say it was the German Shawshank. The blogger doesn't quite agree. Shawshank was the result of 20 years of careful preparation, an example of making a decision and then moving on. Whereas Kivins showed a strong desire to escape from the start, and had no time or opportunity to prepare, because everyone gets lead poisoning if they stay here too long. His escape, by thinking of his family, and the help of countless good people, and the blessings of God,